Today we're at Mount Schanck for a carbon demonstration day, and we're really looking forward to a great day of learning to really understand what's going on with the market and the supply chain and the opportunities around carbon. Farming businesses have these new expectations coming upon them, and that's partly driven by the market. Also other investors like banks and so on are taking more and more interest in the sustainability credentials of farms, and part of that is carbon.
And that's happening across all industries, all sectors globally in the world, whether you're ag, mining, manufacturing, services, education, this is happening everywhere.
As producers, you always got to remember there's only one person that puts money into the supply chain. Who's that? The final consumer, exactly. So if we're not producing a product that those people will buy, we're not in the game.
Here at Mount Schanck, we've spent the last 12 months developing a carbon baseline, and that's primarily about assessing the emissions that occur on the property, the emissions from the livestock, and then in addition, the emissions from farm machinery operations, fodder cropping, etc. on farm. Beyond the baseline, we're looking at options to reduce emissions, and that's where we pull in opportunities around soil and trees.
So Mount Schanck's about 10,000 acres. Of that's about 2,000 acres irrigated. We're a mixed grazing property running about 2,500 breeding cows and about 10,000 composite sheep. Climate, we're about 650 mil rainfall on average. Of that's about 400 mil in our growing season. So the carbon project we've undertaken here at Mount Schanck involves a tree planting shelter belt program, which is identifying areas that we wanted to increase our shelter and trees. And our soil project, we identified our lowest performing areas, and with a view of trying to increase our carbon capturing, but also areas that we can improve our production on. We run a program, AgriWeb, and it tracks all our stock movements. So we know how many DSC days those paddocks have run, how many stock they've run, how many kilograms of weight gain we've done per hectare, per paddock, per pivot, whatever we want to break it down into. And then we identified from there our worst ones and what we could do to improve those.
We're actually looking to assess the paddocks in the farm that may have the lowest level of carbon and the most opportunity to improve that. I like to think about that like a bucket. We want a big bucket, but not very full to start with, and an opportunity to fill it up, which means adding more soil carbon.
We identified a couple of ways we're going to go about it, and one is improving pastures, which is just a perennial pasture program on some of our annual pastures. And the other way was using organic fertiliser, so compost and that sort of thing. So these were paddocks. This is a block that we purchased and running a very, very low DSC rating, which was about 3 to 4 DSC per hectare. So we went in and deep ripped with a bulldozer, and then we rock munched as well. And then after that, we've gone from a very low annual base pasture to now a full productive perennial pasture. Within 4 years, we've gone from 4 DSC up to about 16 DSC, and taken a lot of work, but we are starting to see the benefits now.
Building carbon in trees is a long-term initiative, and so you need first to assess the whole farm and not just the carbon side of it. It's got to fit with the production outcomes that we're seeking. We're looking first to locate those trees in areas where they'll provide shelter for livestock. Second is around the environmental benefits. So we've looked for developing corridors of native trees and a mix of species that have a biodiversity benefit, and carbon's really a benefit on top of that.
If we can increase our production and pick up some fundamental gains in terms of lambing or calving or condition scoring or less feeding, I think that's the aim of it from my end. It is a long process, looking long term, and generational change, I guess that's the way to look at it.
So we plant around about 2,000 trees on an annual basis for shelter belts and amenity and stock health. But now we're beginning to understand there's an end consumer demand for that behaviour. We supply directly into the EU market, so in the future that market's going to ask more of us, and we're already ready for that.
This is coming, so it's great to be able to get our foot in the door and see what a major producer's doing and how they're going about tackling the issues.
95% of the emissions for the product start here and happen here. That also means that the solutions happen here. Some of you got an opportunity in soil, others won't. Some of you might have planted a heap of trees since the 90s and you're like, well, we've got enough. Others, you're like, I bought a new block and it's got, it's bare and we want to get into that. So you've got to look at it property by property. It's about just tying in carbon outcomes to the activities that you want to do anyway. We've all got a lot to do on our plate and we want to run a productive and profitable farm. We want to feed the world, and that's really job one. Doing that with lower carbon emissions, that's what we're integrating and building that into that plan, and that starts with understanding your emissions, understanding your opportunities and taking the first step.